evening, and welcome to A Place Called Through. I'm your host, Patricia Wade Goings, broadcasting from WYTV7 Christian Broadcasters Network. We share missions of hope. Our stories are to encourage you, to empower, and to inspire you. And it's done through those charitable donations. So I ask you today, won't you consider giving to our mission of hope, our mission of love, to help us continue inspiring, empowering, and encourage others. And if you've already done so, we'd like to thank you so much in advance and ask that you continue doing so to help us continue what we do at a place called Food and WYTV7, sharing that mission of hope. Today, we have as our guest, Ms. Sheila Kimball. Ms. Kimball is going to talk to us a little bit about domestic violence, finding domestic violence difficult, hard to get along with, unknown territories. It made the difference in her life. And we hope through her inspiration today that it will help inspire someone else who may be going through and facing those same difficult times. Finding hope in dark places. Today, welcome to A Place Called Through. Ms. Kimball, welcome to A Place Called Through.
Hello, ma'am.
Blessings to you. Ms.
Thank
Kimball,
you.
your story, we're going to talk today about domestic violence. And we know that domestic violence is still rapidly increasing, and even so more with the state that we're in of this pandemic. We know that there is a rise amongst youth as well with domestic violence. Sadly, there's a large number of children that are impacted by domestic violence. Either they are victims themselves, they've inflicted it on someone else, or they've even seen this go on in their household. And so we want to talk to you about the effects of, being a victim. Your early childhood wasn't one of the most pleasant. You grew up with some health challenges. I understood that you had some health issues, and your family was pretty much dysfunctional. So talk to us about some of those challenges that you faced in your early childhood.
Well, I was born, well, I can't say I was born, but I was diagnosed at the age of 2.5 with retinoblastoma, which is a childhood disease, and usually 50% of children survive that disease. And God has blessed me to pass that that point in my life. Um, but it did leave me blind 100% in my right eye. But I still thank God for allowing me to live as long as I have. Um, so that's some of the health challenges that I have. Um, and as far as domestic violence, I've seen some things, some challenging things that has affected me.
And, to have been born, well, as you said, not born with it, but this was something that came upon you, unknown to you, unknown. How are you going to get along? And I'm sure that there had to been plenty of what back then was teasing, now known as bullying, because of your condition. So how did you get along during school time, having this condition?
Well, I did encounter a lot of bullying, as they call it nowadays. But yes, I was teased quite a bit because of my eyes. Sometimes they wander, um, and I tend to conceal my face a lot. I was bullied by mostly the older kids, and it took a tremendous hold on me, a toll, not a hole, but a toll. Um, it affected me a lot.
And so how did they receive this fact that you're now in school and the children are teasing you? And, this is a life-threatening, obvious condition that you are now enduring at a very early age, as you said, from the age of 2.
Yes. Well, my father was often at work. He worked days and my mother worked nights. But the way in which my parents taught me, my mom always said to turn the other cheek and pray. My dad said you better pick up a stick or a rock and knock the hell out of them. So I kind of balanced that, and I ended up becoming a peacemaker, not so much trying to talk my way out of a situation, but trying to get people to analytically think. And I didn't realize at such a young age what I was doing, which later on turned out to be um, a blessing for me.
And so, you mentioned before about you having siblings home. So was you and your siblings home most of the time because your parents were away at work?
Well, that came about once we moved from the state that we moved from, Illinois, and we ended up, as we got a little older, becoming latchkey kids. My younger sibling didn't come around until I was about 13 years old.
Amazing, amazing. And that your family was so dysfunctional, but yet you were still going through trying to connect to identify who now you are and having to live with this disparity. As we said, domestic violence is constantly on the rise, as sad as it is. And it's not only just the physical aspects of it, it is the emotional sides of that become so violent, the change in the behavior. And in light of the fact that now we are in a pandemic, violence is on the rise now. More people are so disheartened because of what they're having to go through, the loss of wages, the loss of the jobs, the closing of the businesses, families not being able to count on each other anymore because of those conditions. Even so, with the lacking of food pantries are now in despair. So I can only imagine what it must have been like for you to go through those type of situations compared to where people are now. Domestic violence, and I mean, if you're in a situation, to our listeners and our viewers, let me encourage you, please call someone, get help, let someone know. There is a national domestic hotline available 24 hours for you. You can call 911, and that number for the national domestic hotline is 1-800-799-7233. Once again, the national hotline for domestic violence is 1-800-799-7233. Please call, get some help, get help right away. And, we know that back there, you were a child. You didn't know about this hotline. You didn't know where to go or who you could trust, even for that matter, or where you could turn to. So you continued in school with this bullying and the teasing. So how was life once, you began to deal with some of this teasing and the bullying, and now you're realizing, okay, I have a condition here. I have to deal with it. And as you state, what your father said one way and your mom said another. So now tell us, how did you manage to deal up to this point?
Well, for me, I was able to again talk my way out of a lot of situations or avoid situations so that I wouldn't get myself in a precarious situation. Because what a lot of people do not understand is that bullying is also a form of domestic violence, because it's violence against another person that is vulnerable. So I was able to, I did have to fight. I had to fight some, but I was able to talk my way or articulate in a way that got me out of a lot of situations.
And so were your siblings any resources for you? Were they helpful, towards some of this bullying that you endured while you were in school?
Well, I had two younger siblings. One of my siblings is 5 years younger than I, and my other sibling is 13 years younger than I. I have an older sibling, which was a lot older than I, and I really didn't know her growing up. So a lot of the neighborhood kids that I hung around with, their older siblings would often come to my rescue.
Amazing. And talking about your neighborhood, there were some horrific things going on in your neighborhood that you actually witnessed in terms of domestic violence. You actually saw someone be injured very close to you, as a child. And so, how did that affect you staying and growing up in that same neighborhood?
Well, right after that incident, my parents moved. I believe it was a couple months after that, but I didn't realize the effect that it took on with me until later in life. I was told that it would affect me, and me being as young as I was at the time, I was in the fourth grade. A child does not equate such things. So I think that as I went on in life and I began having difficulties in school, that was probably part of the problem that I was having because I wasn't able to cope with that at such a young age.
And so you're coping, for our listeners and our viewers, you were not able to cope because you actually witnessed the loss of a life due to domestic violence. And so as a child, you could not process that, but you were able to seek out to counseling and outside guidance because of what you had now witnessed.
Um, was able to seek counseling because of my behavioral problems in school. The school often referred me out to a therapist, but I had a lot of anger issues. So as I went on through life, working with different counselors, I guess I was in denial and I didn't understand how to process that either. It wasn't until later in life that I was able to learn how to process it.
And so your mom and dad, I want to go back for just a minute. I know that you said that they worked, but what kind of, what was the support here for you? Because you're a child dealing with a serious illness. You've now been a witness to a domestic situation. What did your dad have to say? What did your mom have to say?
Well, my dad, I don't think that he understood or knew exactly how. And then I was like a dad's girl. I was a daddy's girl. Um, I was a daddy's girl, so I got that a different type of not negative love, but I was always taken out to places, used to go fishing with my dad, trips with my dad, things like that. My mom looked at it from a religious perspective where she always said, pray about it, talk to God about it, ask God to guide you, turn the other cheek. She always kept it at a religious perspective. So, and my dad kind of more or less told me, the streets of survival is a little bit more than what God says, because God even fought in wars. So that's how they, taught me.
They brought you through it. Okay, we're
Yes.
going to take a 10-minute break and we'll be right back. And we're here with Ms. Kimball, who's sharing a story on dark places, the effects of domestic violence, how it affects, each family is affected by domestic violence one way or another, be it the victim or someone that you witness going through. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after a commercial break on A Place Called Through. I'm your host, Patricia Wade Goings, broadcasting from WYTV7, Christian Broadcasters Network. Welcome back to A Place Called Through, broadcasting from WYTV7, Christian Broadcasters Network, where I am your host, Patricia Wade Goings. Today, we've been talking to Ms. Kimball. We're finding hope in dark places, darkness, the dark side of domestic violence, victim victory, from being that person, how survival means everything to you and to everyone else that may be going through. And we want to take this time to share this number with you from the National Domestic Hotline. If you're in a domestic situation, please do not hesitate. Go get help. 800-799-7233. Again, the National Domestic Violence Hotline is 1-800-799-7233. Or you can call 911 in your local area to seek help. Please do so today. Get the help while help is available to you from every state. And we welcome back Ms. Kimball, who's been sharing her story. And she grew up, she faced health issues. Her family was working all the time. The siblings had to kind of like kick in and take care of each other, gone to school, and has been teased. And in our words today, it would be bullying, which we're now saying bullying is actually a form of domestic violence. Domestic violence is not always just the physical side, but it is also the emotional side that many people face, be it emotional or that physical aspect. And because we're facing COVID-19, the nation is in a state of pandemic right now. This is on the rise. Domestic violence, it's rising. And, just for your information, I want to share some facts with you. Where recent reports indicated an estimation of nearly 1 billion children ages 2 through 17 have fallen prey to becoming victims of some characteristic of domestic violence by the formation of sexual, physically, and inclusive of a particular type of emotional violence. Currently, stats indicate that domestic violence among children continues to increase. Chillingly to this fact, 90% of these children witness acts of domestic violence. In the United States, it is noted that 1 in 3 teens ages 14 through 20 are victims of dating violence. Noteworthy, we want you to know also that 24% of victims are injured by intimate partners and sometimes don't even receive medical treatment, and sometimes they do, but more of a don't seek that medical treatment. So we're talking to Ms. Kimball today about the shadows of darkness, finding hope in dark situations. And truly, she has been through some dark situations, having come down, surviving with the health challenges. And life just was not what you expected it and what you wanted it to be at home. So you made some life affecting choices and decisions. And some of those decisions, it took you down to your future as being a mom, as being a wife, and even in, additional relationships. So talk to us, Ms. Kimball, if you will, about, your desires now as school is ending for you and, you've had such a horrific early state in your life. Tell us where you were then.
Well, I had left home at an early age. I was out on the streets. I had gotten involved with an older crowd, and everything was not peachy keen.
And, you chose to leave home at what age?
I left home a couple of times, but last time that I left home, I was about 17, 18 years old,
Your first time leaving home, you were how old?
about 13, 14.
Now that's really amazing that you chose at the age of 13 to leave home to go where? Where were you going to go at the age of 13?
I didn't know where I was going. I tried to stay with friends, and I had the type of father that I guess he kind of threatened some of my friends' parents and told them that if they allowed me to stay there, that there will be some repercussions with the law. So I was going from pillar to post, staying with school friends and people that my parents didn't even know. So I had it rough out there. There were times where I was, riding around on the buses all night, sleeping on the buses. There was a couple times I had to sleep out in the park, one eye open and one eye closed. So I kind of went through some things.
So yes, that was finding hope in dark situations because, like you stated, you were now here living from pillar to post versus being home, with your family, even though they were working and your siblings had to pretty much help take care of each other. But you because you felt that no one actually cared for you.
Yes.
You felt there was no hope because you felt alone. And I recall you even stating to us that, you were in the room, but it still felt like nobody cared about you.
Exactly.
So that was your hurt and your gesture to say, okay, I've had enough of this. I'm out of here.
Yes.
And so you left and you went from pillar to post. And as you stated, pretty much, you were rooming with older people who obviously had more streetwise knowledge, more everything knowledge, because here you are only 13. So you began relationships with some of these older people that, allowed you to stay with them. And most of them were males, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And you formed a relationship with one particular male. And he was already in a relationship.
Yes, ma'am.
And that relationship lasted for a while with you.
Yes, it did.
And so tell us about that relationship, if you will.
I was introduced to this individual by a friend at the time, and That relationship lasted a while and produced two children out of that.
Amazing. What was his family life like? Did he have a family?
He had a family, and his family was very, very dysfunctional. They were very dysfunctional, but for me, it was like the normal way of living
Mhm.
and watching. I'm on the outside looking in, but again, I did not know any better.
But then your relationships with most of the males or whomever, you as you stated, moving from pillar to post, these men actually used you and abused you. Is this where your I guess victim came in at the part of being the victim?
Yes, yes, it's true.
So they not only just emotionally played with your emotions because you were young, you were young, you didn't know what was going on, but they sexually abused you because
Yes,
of the fact that you were young. And where were you going to turn to?
I didn't have anywhere to turn to. Um, I thought that was normal. I listened. And again, because I was young, I didn't know any better.
Yeah, you were just out there, you were just there, but God has given you true favor because you have now been able to rise above, being abused. And there's a lot of people out there that have not had that opportunity or have not been so successful. And for those that are still out there, you may be running, there is another number I'd like to share with you. The National Human Trafficking number, their hotline is 1-888-373-7888. The National Human Trafficking Hotline number again is 888-373-7888. Get help. Call the number. They're waiting for you to call so that they can come help you. Ms. Kimball, we have about 10 minutes left, and I want to just kind of recap, about domestic violence. How would you encourage someone who now is, trying to find light in this dark situation of domestic violence?
Well, my suggestion would be people are always saying, well, why don't you just leave? It's not easy to leave. There are about 9 different forms of domestic violence, and one of them is financial. So if you are a woman or even a man who is relying upon someone financially, it's difficult to just get up and leave. Um, for me, I suggest that you kind of make a plan because sometimes when an opportunity arises for you to just get up and go, you just have to get up and go. But there are resources out there that you can reach out to and ask for help. Um, I always wrote things down or kept things in my mind so that I can be able to utilize this tool later on in life that would help someone else.
And so as we bring this close, to a close, sadly, we're thankful that you are a survivor and that you can empower and inspire and encourage others that are, going through, because as a child, like you said, you left home, you had no money, you had no resources, you ran from pillar to post. The sexual assault upon you, it became a normal thing to you because you didn't know anything. It was just a typical day, a typical way for you to survive on the cold darkness of the streets and darkness of domestic violence. We sure thank you for being our guest on A Place Called Through. If you have any information that you would further like to share with our guests and our listeners, please do so because we know that you've moved on and you've done some great things. So if you would go ahead and share that. And I want to share one more thing again. We want to reiterate those numbers to you for the National Domestic Hotline, 1-800-799-7233. And the National Human Trafficking number is 1-888-373-7888. And again, the National Domestic Line, 800-799-7233. And National Human Trafficking is 888-373-7888. Get help. It's there for you. And if you would close us out, with your information to help somebody be inspired.
Yes, what I did was to let my healing begin is I began writing. I wrote a book, Bits and Pieces of Me, a mother's memoir, and it talks about my struggles to survive while from the time I was younger up until adulthood and even some of the things that I went through. So I self-published my own book to help other people, to allow them to be able to heal too, to let them know that they weren't out there alone. There was others out there like
And so, we want to go back, that even for the children who may be going through, how do you encourage them, to know that, yes, there is hope. You found hope in a very dark place. How do you encourage them to find the same hope and peace that you ultimately found?
well, what I would do is let them know that there's somebody out there that that can help them. They need to tell someone and not be afraid to tell. Um, and also always keep God in your heart. I found myself always not knowing at the time, praying and always saying Jesus, Jesus, Jesus whenever I got myself in a situation. So that was part of my survival, is being able to talk to somebody about my struggles.
And you want to repeat the name of your book and where they can find this book?
The name of my book is Bits and Pieces of Me, A Mother's Memoir, and they can find it on Amazon. It is available through Amazon. Bits and Pieces of Me, A Mother's Memoir.
And you've heard it here on A Place Called Through. You've heard it from Miss Kimball, talking about domestic violence, the effects of it. Don't become a victim. Stay in tune for the National Domestic Violence Hotline, and it is 800-799-7233. Coming again to you from the National Human Trafficking Hotline number is 888-737, I'm sorry, 888-373-7888. Call, get the help that you can. We thank you so very much for being our guest today here on A Place Called Through, where we're broadcasting from WYTV7 Christian Broadcasting Network. I've been your host, Patricia Wade Goings, and we share our story of Mission of Hope. If you'd like to be our guest, please do so by contacting us in area code of 843-608-9744. By email, you may reach me at pgoingswp@gmail.com. Please be sure to follow us on WYTV7.org, A Place Called Through. And for Facebook, you may find us at A Place Called Through, at Willpower, The Call to Rise Above. I am the author of Willpower, The Call to Rise Above. Get the book available to you at Barnes & Noble and on Amazon. Again, we thank you for sharing your story today with us, Ms. Kimball. Stay encouraged, stay, motivated to help others as we impart to you our mission of hope and our mission of love. God bless you. And we thank you again for being our guest today on A Place Called Through.
And thank you for having me.